welcome to our episode of Rooted in the Ozarks. My name is Heather Artripe. I work at Ozark Natural Foods. We're here at the beautiful Tricycle Farms today for our cooking demo with Fayetteville Public Access. So today we're going to focus on Shiitaki mushrooms. We have an abundance of those in our area right now from Sweden Creek and several other farms. These mushrooms are great for your immune system, which we really need right now. They're great amounts of protein and vitamins, and they're just super duper delicious. So what we're going to do today is a simple recipe for shiitake fajitas. So first thing we want to do is get our marinade ready for our mushrooms. So we've got our bowl here, and to our bowl we're going to add 2 tablespoons of lime juice. And I'm just using bottled lime juice. I like to have this at home, just in case I run out of limes or don't want to, have to get out and get them. So 2 tablespoons. If you have regular limes at home, this is going to be the juice from 1 lime. Next thing we're going to add 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Perfect. All right, and after our olive oil, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of either soy sauce or tamari. I'm using tamari today. Tamari doesn't have as much salt in it as soy sauce does. It's also usually gluten-free, so I like to use it. I'm not gluten-free, but I use it pretty much in everything now instead of soy sauce. That way it's not too overpowering. And that's just going to give our mushrooms some nice saltiness and really sort of bring out that depth of flavor in them. Then we're going to add a couple of spices. So we're going to do a teaspoon of chili powder. And I've got half of a teaspoon here, so we'll do 2 of those. And then 1 teaspoon of ground cumin. And you can add any other spices you like to this. This is just the basic one. These are really the only 2 you need. You could also add some red pepper flakes and black pepper. Probably don't want to add too much more salt just because we have our soy sauce in here. So we're going to just leave them like that. Give this a nice stir. And as you can see here, it's not much liquid, but we don't want a whole lot. We don't want to completely drown our mushrooms, just enough in there to allow them to soak up all those good flavors. So now what we want to do, we're going to take our mushrooms. So we've got a half a pound, and I've already cleaned and taken the stems off of these. So shiitakes, the stems are a little bit too fibrous, a little bit too woody to actually eat. I've actually got all the stems from these at my apartment, and I'm going to make a great veggie stock with them here in a few days. So I just take a damp paper towel or even just a damp towel and just sort of go over the tops of these and clean them. You don't want to submerge them into water because they're going to soak up all of that liquid. So just a nice damp paper towel and you are good to go. And now we're going to take these, we're going to slice our caps into thirds. Just go straight down there. That way, as these shrink up, they won't be super duper small, but we're going to get a lot of that good flavor in all parts of these mushrooms. Perfect. We've got all of our mushrooms sliced up. We're going to go ahead, get these down here in that marinade. And then we're just going to give them a little bit of a toss. That way everything can get in there and get those good flavors on it. All right, so as you can see, we don't have any liquid left in the bottom here, and those mushrooms soaked all of that up. So now we're just gonna leave those there, let them set for about 10-15 minutes. Okay, so we've got our mushrooms soaking. Next thing we want to do is get the rest of our veggies going for this. So I'm going to do 1 sliced onion. I like doing white onion if I'm doing, anything, fajitas or tacos or anything like that. It's got a nice sharp flavor to it. If you don't have a white onion, yellow works nicely. Even red you can use. So any sort of onion. Now we're going to take our onion. We've got 2 parts. So we've got the top part here. This is what comes out of the ground. we've got our bottom part here. That's the root end. So we want to take our knife, just cut part of that top off. That way we've got a flat surface to work with. Now we're going to just cut straight through that. Peel this outer layer off. And you can keep those onion skins, those onion peels, to use in your veggie stock as well. They're super delicious. Yellow or white works great. You want to be a little bit more careful with your red ones because that can cause it to sort of have a different color to it. Might turn a little bit bitter, but you can still add those in small amounts. All right, so since we're going to slice our onion, we're going to take 1/2 here. We're going to cut down towards that root in whatever sizes you like. So, come back to this other side here. Then we're going to flip this around. We're going to cut that root off. Grab our bowl here. Add this right on in. We'll separate these out as we toss them in here. One tip you can do too, if you're real sensitive to onions, is you can take your onion, pop it in the freezer for about 15 minutes, and then go ahead and start slicing it. What that's going to do is freeze those oils in there, so then, you know, you'll have a better chance of getting through it before those start affecting you and making you cry. Now, if we were wanting to have diced onion, what we would do is we would take this, hold on to it back here, and just start cutting straight down to give us nice, even dices. But since we're slicing it, we're just going to cut that right off. Let's move on to our next thing. We're going to do 2 bell peppers. I'm using a green one and a red one. That's what I had. You can use any type you like. Your bell peppers, they range from your green to your red. The green's going to be the less sweet of all of them. Yellow and orange are in the middle. They're going to be a little bit sweeter than green, not as sweet as your red. And then, of course, your red bell pepper is going to be the sweetest of them all. So we're going to I'm just going to cut that top part off and cut that bottom part off. And if I'm at home not teaching a class, that's the part that I eat. That's always my favorite part of the bell pepper. So now we just want to we slice down each side of those membranes there, and we're just going to sort of pull this apart. And then what I like to do is I stand them up. We're going to slice down. Of course, these aren't spicy, but we still want to have a nice slice, so I like cutting that little bit off right there. Like so. Then our last one here. Perfect. So now we're just going to take our bell pepper and make it into slices about the same size that we did with our onion. Toss those right in there. If you've got some bell peppers at home that you know you're not going to use before they start going bad, what you can do is take them and slice them or dice them, however you think you're going to use them later on. Lay them out on a baking sheet, pop them in the freezer, let them freeze individually, and then put them in a freezer-safe container. You can use them for stir fries or anything where you're actually going to be cooking the pepper. All right, we're going to do the same thing with our red one. And again, we're going to slice down where these membranes are here. So where that middle part of our pepper comes out to the outside. Perfect. Now we've got our peppers done. Okay. Next thing on our list, we're going to do just a couple cloves of fresh garlic. Just add a little bit of flavor. You could also, if you didn't have any fresh garlic, just add maybe like 1/4 teaspoon to your marinade with your mushrooms. Mix that in there. You should be good. 1/4 teaspoon to 1/2 teaspoon, depending on how much you like your garlic. I'm I'm a big fan of garlic, so we're gonna use 3 in our fajitas today. Now we're just gonna press that down with our knife. That's gonna release those papers. And to do this with your knife by hand, what you want to do is you're going to take your knife. This is a chef's knife. Probably going to have this in your kitchen. Great knife, all-purpose use. You're going to take your middle finger here. That's going to go underneath the neck of the blade. And these 2 fingers here are going to go on top. That's going to give you better control over your blade. You're going to get a better cut on what you're cutting. It's also going to be a little bit safer so you don't accidentally cut yourself. So we've got our knife held like this. We're going to round up all of our garlic here. We're going to take our other hand. That's going to go on top of the blade. Make sure you're not too close down here where the end of that could accidentally cut you. And we're going to use this, sort of do a half moon shape here and give this a nice mince. Go over that a few times without your blade ever completely coming off of our cutting board. Perfect. Now I'm going to just leave that right there on my knife so I can come back and get it. Let's get to cooking. So we want to take some olive oil in a skillet, a couple tablespoons. We're going to turn this on. Now what I want to do, just to make sure that we don't throw it in there too soon, we're going to you could either do a couple pieces of your onion, a couple pieces of your bell pepper, just toss that right in there. So if you're doing other things in the kitchen, you can listen for that. When that starts sizzling, we know it's time to go. If we were to take all of this and just dump it in the pan right now while it's still cold, what would happen is it would just soak up all that oil and it wouldn't saute properly. We'd end up having to add some more and just come out a little bit messy. So we're just going to let that do its thing and wait and hear the sound. So one thing I wanted to mention, we got just a couple more seconds on our veggies to come up to temp, is a way to store your shiitakes. So you buy them, do you need to use them right away? Will they last? How do you store them in the refrigerator? So the best way, in my opinion, to store them is in a paper bag. So you just put your mushrooms in the paper bag, take like a single paper towel if you have one, or a napkin, set that in there. That'll absorb any moisture from it, and just set that in your fridge. You don't have to close this up. Leave this open and you should be able to keep your shiitakes for a week or so that way. All right, so we're hearing some sizzling over here. So now what we want to do, we're going to take the rest of our peppers and our onion. Oh yeah, that's the sound we want to hear. And we're just going to sort of give these a nice toss. Now you want to let your peppers and your onions, these are a little bit more sturdy than our mushrooms that we're adding in. We want to let these cook for about 3 to 4 minutes, or until, you know, they're starting to get some nice color on them. They've cooked down a little bit. All right, so these have been cooking for a few minutes here. We've got a little bit of color around the peppers. I prefer my fajitas to have still a little bit of bite on them. Of course, if you want yours softer, just cook them a little bit longer. That's totally up to you. Now what I want to do is we're going to add in our garlic. We're also going to add in a little bit of salt and pepper just to season our veggies. Of course, we've got our soy sauce here and our mushrooms, but as we stack our flavors up, we will end up with a better seasoned dish at the very end. We won't have, you know, something that's either way too salty or not salty enough. So let's go ahead, add in our garlic. And we only want our garlic to cook for about 30 seconds. Really, when you start smelling it, That's when you know your garlic's good, and we don't want it to burn. All right, I'm gonna season this with just a little bit of salt and pepper. Got some kosher salt here. And that'll really help bring out the flavors of our peppers and onions. A little bit of pepper. Give this another toss. All right, I'm smelling that garlic. So now we want to go ahead, we're going to add in our mushrooms. And also any of that marinade that might be on the bottom of there, go ahead and add that right on in. Beautiful. Now we want to mix this all together. And that marinade that's on our mushrooms is always also going to come out onto our peppers and onions and really just sort of marry all of these flavors together. Now we want to cook it with the mushrooms in there for about 3 to 4 minutes. All right, everything's mixed in there nicely. Got all of our mushrooms dispersed throughout. All right, we're gonna let that cook for just a couple of minutes. All right, so we've had everything cooked down here. It smells wonderful. Our onions have cooked down a little bit more than when we first got them in there. And they've got that wonderful flavor from our marinade. So I'm gonna go ahead, turn off our pan. And as you can see, with a ½ pound of mushrooms, a couple of bell peppers, and an onion, this made a lot. Of course, you can add any other ingredient in there you want to, but to me, this is just the perfect amount. So we've got a corn tortilla here. I'm gonna add a few bell peppers and onions. Then we're gonna take our mushrooms here, add a few of those on top. Again, whatever toppings you want, sour cream, cheese, tomatoes, they're your fajitas. You add anything you want to them. I'm just gonna do them plain like this. So we've got our beautiful fajita here. Let's go ahead and get a bite of this. Those mushrooms really soaked up a whole lot of the flavor. It's absolutely divine. You don't even miss any meat or anything in here. The peppers and onions are cooked perfectly. They still have a little bit of bite to them. They've also got some of that marinade on it. It's one of my favorite things. Thank you all so much for joining us for Rooted at the Ozarks here at Tricycle Farms. Again, I am Heather Artripe with Ozark Natural Foods, and thanks to Fayetteville Public Access for joining us on this. And we'll see y'all soon for another recipe.